The admission letter glowed with an ominous red hue as Jasmine Chen held it up to the light of Earth's morning sun. Around her, the recruitment center buzzed with activity. Young cadets from a dozen species, collecting their assignments to various academies across the Galactic Coalition. There must be some mistake, she said softly, that peculiar smile playing at the corners of her mouth, the smile that her brother Kevin always said made her look like she knew something nobody else did. The administrator, towering reptilian creature with scales that shimmered like oil on water, checked his datapad 3 times, his vertical pupils dilated in what Jasmine had learned to recognize as confusion. No mistake, human, you are assigned to the Kethros War Academy. Shuttle departs in 1 standard hour. Jasmine's smile widened. Kethros. Isn't that where they train the Coalition's elite shock troops? Elite is one word for it, the administrator said carefully. The mortality rate during training is approximately 43%. Fascinating, Jasmine replied, tucking the letter into her bag alongside her collection of Earth literature and a battered photograph of her and Kevin at the Grand Canyon. I applied to the Xenobiology Research Institute. The Vrexian's tail twitched nervously. As I said, there must have been. Oh, I'm sure there was, Jasmine interrupted, her tone light and but the shuttle leaves in an hour. You said I should probably get going. She turned and walked toward the departure gates, leaving the administrator staring after her with his jaw hanging open in a very unprofessional manner. The Kethros War Academy occupied an entire Mooniscard, brutal world that had been bombed flat and rebuilt, specifically for the purpose of forging the galaxy's most dangerous soldiers. As Jasmine's shuttle descended through the atmosphere, she pressed her face against the view, watching the endless obstacle courses, firing ranges, and combat arenas scroll past below. First time off Earth? A deep voice asked. Jasmine turned to find a massive Korthi warrior in the seat beside her, 8 feet of muscle, 4 arms, and enough scars to write a history book on his gray skin. His name tag read Thrall. Second time, actually, Jasmine said cheerfully. I went to the moon once. Our moon. For a field trip. Thrall stared at her for a long moment. You seem small, even for a human. I get that a lot. Kethros will break you in the first week. Jasmine's smile never wavered. Maybe. What are you in for? The Karathis for fists clenched simultaneously. I killed a superior officer who dishonored my clan. This is my chance at redemption through blood. That's nice, Jasmine said sincerely. I'm here because someone in the clerical department apparently can't read. The first night at Jasmine was assigned to Barracks Savannah unit composed of the most violent, unstable, or otherwise problematic recruits in her class. Her bunkmates included Thrall, a Zephyr assassin named Slith who had murdered 17 of her own kind, and a hulking Tigran whose crimes were apparently too horrible to be spoken aloud. Fresh meat, Slith hissed, her forked tongue tasting the air. You smell of fear, little human. That's probably the protein paste they served for dinner, Jasmine replied, unpacking her belongings with methodical care. She placed the photograph of Kevin on her footlocker, then arranged her books in a neat stack. You brought reading materials, Thrall rumbled from his bunk, to a war academy. I like to read before bed. It helps me sleep. She held up a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. Have you ever read Jane Austen? She writes beautifully about social expectations and human nature. The entire barracks fell silent. Even the Tegron stopped sharpening his combat claws. You are insane, Slith finally declared. This will be entertaining. The training began at dawn. Commandant Vex, a battle-scarred Krillian with 3 of his original 6 limbs replaced by military-grade cybernetics, addressed the assembled recruits with the warmth of a particularly hostile iceberg. You are the worst of the worst, Vex announced, his voice amplified across the training grounds. Criminals, failures, mistakes. Most of you will die here. Those who survive will become weapons. Nothing more, nothing less. Beside Jasmine, a recruit from some species she didn't recognize actually whimpered. First trial. The gauntlet, Vex continued. 30 kilometers of hostile terrain. Armed opponents, live ammunition. Reach the end in 4 hours or don't bother coming back. The recruits were released like dogs from a gate. Immediately, the stronger ones surged forward while the weaker scrambled to avoid being trampled. Jasmine found herself swept up in the chaos, running at a steady pace that Kevin had helped her develop during their morning jogs. Back home, that first ambush came at the 3-kilometer mark. Automated turrets rose from concealed positions, spraying the recruits with munitions that, while non-lethal, would definitely leave bruises. Jasmine watched as larger recruits simply charged through, absorbing the hits with their superior biology. She couldn't do that, so she didn't. Instead, she stopped running entirely. She stood still, analyzing the firing patterns with the same focused attention she used to give to her biology homework. The turrets tracked movement, rapid movement especially. They had blind spots, gaps in their coverage caused by terrain features. Jasmine walked through the kill zone at a leisurely pace, stepping between the firing solutions like she was navigating puddles on a rainy day. Behind her, Thrall watched in disbelief. Then, growling something in his native language, He followed her path exactly. By the time Jasmine reached the 15-kilometer mark, she'd accumulated a following. Thrall was there, along with Slith and half a dozen other recruits who'd realized that the small humans somehow knew things about timing, about patterns, about thinking instead of just reacting. The second ambush was more sophisticated. Actual opponents wearing training armor and armed with shock batons. They emerged from the rocky terrain like vengeful spirits, expecting to overwhelm the exhausted recruits. "Spread out," Jasmine said quietly. "They're herding us toward that canyon on the left. See the scorch marks? Previous groups fell for the same trap. So what do we do?" Slith hissed. Jasmine's smile returned, that strange knowing expression that seemed so out of place on this brutal moon. "We go right through the water." "That's a swamp," Thrall protested. "It'll slow us down, but they won't expect it. And I noticed something on the descent. The swamp connects to an old maintenance tunnel. Pre-academy construction. It's a shortcut." It was a gamble based on half-remembered glimpses from the shuttle and sheer intuition, but Jasmine had always been good at puzzles, at seeing patterns where others saw chaos. It was why she'd wanted to study xenobiology, to understand the underlying order in alien life. They went through the swamp, and there, exactly where Jasmine had predicted, was a tunnel entrance overgrown with moss but still functional. Her group finished the gauntlet in 2 hours and 40 minutes, the fastest time in Academy history. Commandant Vex reviewed the footage for the third time, his cybernetic eye worry as it focused and refocused on the small human leading a group of the deadliest recruits through his carefully designed death trap. "She's smiling," his assistant noted, "the entire time, even when she almost fell into the acid pit." "Yes," Vex said slowly. "I noticed. Should we investigate? Perhaps the clerical error." "No." Vex is remaining organic. I gleamed with something that might have been respect. "Leave her where she is. I want to see what happens." That night, Jasmine sat on her bunk reading by flashlight while her bunkmates discussed the day's events in hushed, awed tones. Thrall approached, his 4 hands clasped in a gesture of respect from his culture. "You saved many lives today, Jasmine Chen. I am in your debt." Jasmine looked up from her book, that mysterious smile still in place. "You're welcome. But I didn't really do anything special. I just paid attention." "Humans," Slith said from her corner. And there was something new in her voice, not quite friendship, but perhaps the beginning of respect. "You are all insane, maybe," Jasmine agreed, returning to her book. "But Kevin always said my particular brand of insanity might come in handy." Someday she didn't tell them that she'd already figured out that Academy's entire training system was based on a mathematical model she'd seen before in her xenobiology studies. She didn't mention that she'd been reversing the pattern since the shuttle landing. And she definitely didn't tell them that. She'd sent an encrypted message to her brother earlier that evening, telling him that while there had indeed been a clerical error, she'd decided to stay anyway because Kethros War Academy, with all its dangers and trials, was just another kind of ecosystem, and Jasmine Chen had always been very, very good at understanding ecosystems. Her smile widened as she turned the page.